The sun was falling behind the jagged rocks, throwing long shadows across the dry land. The ground was hard and cracked, a place where even small plants struggled to grow. In the center of this barren place, a young alien girl knelt, her arms tied tightly with rough rope. Her eyes were wide with fear, but her mouth stayed shut because she knew no one there cared for her words. Around her, a group of her own people stood, their faces filled with cold judgment. Some whispered, some spat on the ground, others laughed cruelly. They had gathered for her punishment, and no one looked at her with pity. They dragged her to the middle of the sand pit and forced her down. Her legs kicked weakly, but the ropes cut into her skin. The guards pushed her face into the dirt, making her taste the bitter dust. She wanted to scream, but the shame in her heart was heavier than the hands holding her down. They began to dig with sharp tools, throwing sand behind them until a narrow hole was carved. The leader of the clan pointed at her with disgust. "She is sterile. She cannot give life. She is worthless." His voice echoed across the desert. The crowd answered with angry cries, as if her weakness was an insult to them all. She was pushed into the pit. Cold sand pressed against her skin. Her body trembled as the dirt rose higher around her waist. They kept shoveling, faster, harder, their eyes burning with hatred. The weight of the sand trapped her legs, then her chest, pressing against her ribs until breathing became harder. She struggled, her hands tied, her nails clawing at the ropes, but there was no escape. Soon, the earth swallowed her up to her neck. Only her face remained above the ground, her long hair falling in messy strands across her cheeks. She could not move. She could not run. She could only watch. The people stepped back, satisfied. Some threw stones near her head, laughing when she flinched. One woman spat at her and hissed, "A body that cannot carry children is a curse. Let the earth take you." The girl's throat burned with the words she wanted to say, but she forced them down. What was the use? No one wanted to hear her cries. She had been judged, and the judgment was final. As the crowd began to leave, the sound of their feet on the gravel grew fainter. Soon the desert became quiet, only the sharp wind moving across the empty land. The girl blinked at the endless sky above her, painted red by the setting sun. For a moment, it looked beautiful, like fire spreading across the heavens. But she could not feel its beauty. She could only feel fear creeping into her chest like ice. Night was coming, and with it the freezing cold, the sharp claws of desert animals, and the loneliness that killed more surely than blades. Her heart beat fast, and tears ran down her cheeks, cutting small rivers into the dust on her skin. She thought of the life she might have lived if she had been born different. She remembered the laughter of other girls in her village, their arms carrying babies, their faces glowing with pride. She remembered how they avoided her eyes, whispering about her curse. Now, all those whispers had turned into this moment. Buried, abandoned, condemned. The air grew colder. The sky shifted from red to deep blue, and the first stars appeared above her. She shivered violently, her teeth clicking together. The sand held her body like a coffin, stealing her warmth little by little. Insects crawled across her skin, and she wanted to scream but swallowed the sound. If she screamed, maybe predators would come sooner. If she stayed silent, maybe she would last until morning. She closed her eyes, trying to pretend she was somewhere else. Maybe by a river, maybe under a roof, maybe holding the hand of someone who cared. But each time she drifted into that dream, the sharp wind slapped her awake. She opened her eyes again and again, always meeting the same empty land stretching for miles. Hours passed. Her lips grew dry, her throat scratched like sandpaper. She licked her lips, but there was no relief. The moon rose high, a pale ghost shining above her. Its cold light washed over her face, making her look like a statue, half dead already. She thought maybe that was true. Maybe she was already half gone. Every sound made her heart jump, a howl in the distance. The scratching of paws against the dirt, a snake sliding near her buried body. She froze each time, unable to run, unable to fight, only praying the creatures would pass her by. Fear lived inside her chest like a burning coal. She wanted to sleep, but each time her head tilted forward, the thought of never waking up made her jerk awake in terror. The long night dragged on, endless and cruel. She whispered to herself, her voice soft, broken, "I don't want to die. Not like this." Her tears dried on her skin, leaving white lines across her cheeks. She thought of her people, of their faces turned away, of their voices calling her worthless. She thought of how death was waiting, patient and close. But then, through the silence of the desert, she felt it. A sound. Slow, steady. Heavy footsteps pressing against the dirt. Her eyes widened, searching the shadows. The sound grew louder, closer. Not the skitter of animals, not the slither of snakes. These were strong steps, heavy like a man's. Her heart pounded as her lips trembled. Someone was coming. Was it another villager returning to throw more stones? Was it a thief searching for easy prey? Or was it death itself, walking in the form of some stranger? She could not tell. She only knew one thing. She was not alone anymore. And in that fragile moment between fear and hope, she felt a tiny spark inside her chest. A spark that whispered maybe, just maybe, she was not finished yet. The night was still when he walked across the desert, his boots pressing into the sand with a slow, steady rhythm. He was a human, tall and broad, carrying only a small pack on his back and a lantern in his hand. His face looked tired, older than his years, because of the pain he carried inside. He had lost his wife not long ago, and ever since then, every step felt heavy. He wandered far from towns and people, as if the empty land could quiet the sorrow in his heart. His little daughter was waiting for him back at the small farm he kept alive with his hands, and she was the only reason he had not broken completely. As he walked under the pale light of the moon, he heard something strange. At first, it was so faint he thought it was just the wind moving across the rocks. But then he heard it again, a sound like a weak breath, a tiny moan carried by the air. He stopped, raising his lantern higher, his eyes narrowing. The desert was supposed to be empty at night. Yet, in the silence, the sound repeated. Curiosity pulled him forward. He moved closer, his steps cautious. Then his light fell on something that froze him in place. At first, he thought it was only a head lying on the ground, eyes half closed, hair tangled with sand. But then his mind realized the truth. She was buried. The alien girl, her skin pale in the moonlight, her body hidden under the earth, only her face free. Her lips trembled as she breathed, her eyes fluttering weakly. He gasped, his chest tightening with shock. For a moment, he thought it was some cruel trick. Maybe a ritual. Maybe a punishment. He had seen strange customs before in alien villages. Some were harsh, some were cruel beyond human understanding. But this, burying someone alive, made his blood run cold. He stepped closer, and the girl's eyes shifted toward him. They widened just slightly, a spark of life flashing in their dull glow. She tried to speak, but only a broken whisper came out, dry and fragile. "Help, please." The word cut through the night, sharp and desperate. He felt his throat tighten. He knelt down beside her, brushing away a little sand near her face. Her skin was ice cold. She was still alive, but barely. He looked around, scanning the empty desert, half expecting others to appear and stop him. But there was no one, only the two of them under the moon. He hesitated. He was only one man, tired and grieving, with a daughter waiting at home. This girl was not his responsibility. She was an alien, one of the people who often looked at humans with disdain. Why should he risk himself for her? Why should he bring trouble into his life when he already carried so much pain? But then he remembered the last night with his wife. She had been weak, her voice faint, but her words had burned into his heart. Be kind, even when it costs you. She had whispered as he held her hand. Don't let the world turn you cold. His eyes closed for a moment, the memory hitting him like a wave. When he opened them again, he looked at the girl's face. She was trembling, tears mixing with dust. And he knew. He could not leave her. He would not. He dropped his pack and began to dig with his bare hands. The sand was cold, hard, and heavy. His fingers clawed at it, pulling it away from her shoulders. Each handful felt endless, but he kept going. The girl tried to move, but the ropes on her arms were too tight. She gave a weak sound, half sob, half gasp. He shook his head, his voice rough but firm. Don't give up. I've got you. The words made her eyes shine for a moment, as if she could not believe someone was speaking to her like that. His hands grew raw, small cuts opening on his skin, but he ignored the pain. The pile of sand beside him grew higher as he freed her chest, then her arms. At last, he cut the ropes with the knife from his belt. She gasped, her arms trembling as she tried to move them. He did not stop. He dug until her legs were free, and then he reached down, pulling her fragile body out of the pit. She was lighter than he expected, weak from hunger and cold. her body shivering against him as he lifted her onto his back. She clung to him loosely, her head resting against his shoulder. For the first time in a long while, he felt a strange heat inside his chest. Not anger, not grief, but something else. Purpose. He adjusted her weight and began walking again, the desert stretching wide and lonely around him. The sand crunched beneath his boots, and the girl made a small sound like she wanted to speak. You shouldn't, she whispered weakly. I'm cursed, worthless. They buried me because... Her voice broke, the words too heavy. She turned her face away, ashamed. He tightened his grip on her, his jaw firm. No life is worthless, he said quietly, not while I can still carry it. The words struck her deeper than any she had ever heard. Her tears fell silently against his back as they moved across the night. For the first time since her punishment began, she felt something warm, something impossible. Hope. The desert stretched before them, cold and endless, but neither of them felt alone anymore. She closed her eyes, her body shaking less now, as if his strength was wrapping around her like a blanket. He walked on, step after step, with only the stars as their witness. And though he did not know what waited at the end of this road, he knew one thing for certain. He had saved her, and he would not let her go. The night air bit against his skin as he carried her, step after step, across the empty desert. Her body felt too light on his back, as if the earth had already stolen most of her strength. Each time she breathed, it was shallow, like a small bird trying to stay alive after being trapped too long. He adjusted his grip, holding her tighter, afraid she would slip away if he loosened even for a moment. The lantern swayed in his hand, its light painting strange shadows across the rocks. The silence between them was heavy, broken only by the sound of his boots sinking into the sand and her faint breaths against his neck. After a while, she stirred weakly, her voice barely more than a whisper. You shouldn't have taken me. They will punish you too. Her words trembled, as if even speaking them drained what little strength she had left. He didn't answer right away. His eyes were fixed on the horizon, his jaw tight. He knew she was right. If her people discovered he had interfered, there could be consequences. But his wife's last words echoed again in his heart, and he shook his head. Let them come, he said firmly, though his voice was quiet. I couldn't walk away and let you die. She closed her eyes at that, pressing her cheek against his shoulder. No one had ever spoken like that for her. For so long, she had been treated as a mistake, a body without worth, an outcast whose existence shamed her clan. Now here was this man, not even of her kind, saying her life mattered. Tears she thought she had run out of gathered again, rolling down her face. She tried to hide them, but the way her chest shook gave her away. He felt it. He didn't say anything, only shifted his arm slightly so she rested more securely. He carried her as if she were not a burden, but something precious. She felt the warmth of his body through the chill of the night, and slowly that warmth spread inside her too. They walked for a long time. The desert stretched endlessly, the stars bright above them like watching eyes. Every so often, he stopped to adjust her weight or to let her drink from his flask. She resisted at first, whispering, "Don't waste it on me," but he pressed it to her lips anyway. Water slid down her dry throat, and she drank greedily before pulling away. Ashamed. You need it more, she said weakly. I can bear thirst, he replied simply. You can't. The words silenced her. No one had ever put her above themselves. It was a strange, unfamiliar feeling, and it frightened her almost as much as it comforted her. As the hours passed, she tried to move, her legs trembling as if they might carry her weight. But when he lowered her to stand, her knees collapsed beneath her, and she almost fell face first into the sand. He caught her quickly, lifting her again without hesitation. You're not ready, he said, his tone soft but unyielding. She clenched her fists weakly, frustration flashing in her eyes. I'm useless. Even now, I can't walk beside you. He looked at her then, his face shadowed by the lantern's dim light, but his eyes steady and clear. No, you're alive. That is enough. Those words struck something inside her, breaking down walls she had built around her heart for years. She turned her face into his shoulder again, hiding the fresh wave of tears. She hated that she cried so much, but she couldn't stop. No one had ever spoken to her with such certainty, such kindness. The night slowly gave way to the faint glow of dawn. The horizon turned pale, then golden, as the first rays of sunlight spread across the sand. He kept moving, each step slower now from exhaustion, but his grip on her never loosened. She lifted her head slightly, watching the light creep into the world. The warmth of it touched her skin, and for the first time since her burial, she didn't feel like death was waiting for her. Her lips parted, and she spoke softly. "Why do you help me? I am nothing to you. Not your blood. Not your kin. My people would call me cursed." He didn't stop walking, but his voice carried a weight that made her heart tremble. "Because no one deserves to be buried alive. Because I lost someone I loved. And I know how it feels when life is stolen too soon. I won't let it happen again if I can stop it." She stared at him, her breath catching. She didn't know his story, but the sadness in his tone told her enough. He carried his own wounds, his own grief, yet he still chose to carry her too. That was something she couldn't understand, something that made him seem almost unreal. The road stretched onward, the farm still far away, but she no longer thought only of her pain. She began to think of what it meant that someone had chosen to save her when everyone else had chosen to bury her. She thought of his daughter waiting at home, a girl she had not met yet, and wondered what kind of human child she might be. The man's steps grew heavier, his breath slower, but he did not complain. When he stumbled once, she panicked, clutching at him weakly. "Put me down," she begged. "You will fall." But he straightened, tightening his hold on her. "I told you, I've got you." Her heart pounded at the simple strength of those words. She believed him now, more than she believed the cruel voices of her people. She let her eyes close, not in fear this time, but in trust. Sleep pulled her under, but it was gentle, safe, held by the steady rhythm of his steps. As the sun climbed higher, casting golden light across the desert, he carried her toward his home. And though neither of them knew what waited there, something unspoken had already formed between them. A fragile thread of trust, of belonging, that tied their broken worlds together. For the first time, she felt the faint spark of something she had never known before. Hope that she was not cursed after all. And maybe, just maybe, her life had meaning beyond what her people had allowed her to believe. The sun was already high when he reached the edge of his farm. His arms ached from carrying her all night, but he did not let go. The path was narrow, lined with broken fences and tall grass, leading to a small wooden house that stood alone in the middle of dry fields. Smoke curled faintly from the chimney, and in the doorway, a small figure stood waiting. It was his daughter, a girl no older than 8, her hair tangled from sleep, her big eyes wide as she saw him coming. At first, she ran toward him with joy, but then she stopped suddenly when she noticed what he was carrying. Her smile faded into confusion, then fear. The alien girl's pale face rested against his shoulder, her body limp with exhaustion. The child's hands clutched the edge of her dress, unsure whether to go closer or hide inside the house. He lowered the girl gently onto a blanket near the doorway, wiping the sweat from his forehead. "She's hurt," he said softly to his daughter. "She needs food, water, and rest. She will stay with us." The child frowned, her voice small but sharp. "But she's not like us. What if she's dangerous?" He looked at his daughter, his eyes kind but firm. "She's no danger. She's alone, and she needs us. Remember what your mother taught us? Kindness first." The little girl hesitated, chewing her lip. The word mother always softened her, because even though she was gone, her lessons still guided their lives. Slowly, she nodded, though she stayed cautious. Inside the house, the air smelled of wood and bread. He laid the alien girl on a straw mattress in the corner, covering her with a thick blanket. She shivered, still half asleep, her lips moving as if she whispered something in her dreams. His daughter watched from the doorway, hugging a small wooden doll to her chest. The man fetched a bowl of water and dampened a cloth, gently wiping the dirt from the alien girl's face. Her skin was marked with bruises and scars, harsh reminders of the cruelty she had endured. He saw the old rope burns on her wrists, the faint lines of whips across her shoulders. His chest tightened with anger, but he said nothing. Instead, he cleaned her wounds and spoke softly, though she was too weak to answer. The daughter slowly stepped closer, curiosity fighting with fear. She peered at the alien girl's strange features, her slightly luminous eyes, her delicate cheekbones, the faint shimmer on her skin that caught the light. She whispered, "Papa, why did they hurt her?" He paused, looking at his little girl. Because sometimes people fear what they do not understand, and sometimes they are cruel to the ones who cannot fight back. The child lowered her eyes, hugging the doll tighter. She didn't fully understand, but she could feel the sadness in his voice. She glanced at the alien girl again, and for a brief moment, she felt something other than fear. She felt pity. Later, he gave the girl a sip of warm broth. She tried to resist, weakly shaking her head. Shame filled her voice as she whispered, "I don't deserve this. I bring only trouble." He looked straight into her tired eyes. "You deserve to live. That's enough." She stared at him, her lips trembling, and for a moment she had no words. She drank the broth slowly, tears slipping down her cheeks with every swallow. His daughter sat on a stool nearby, watching silently, her little face troubled. As the day went on, the alien girl grew a little stronger. She could sit up, though her body still shook. She touched the blanket she lay on, the simple food she had been given, the roof over her head. All of it felt unreal, like a dream she would soon wake from. When the daughter finally dared to come closer, she placed a small piece of bread on the girl's lap. She didn't speak, only looked at her quickly before turning away. The alien girl's hands trembled as she picked up the bread. She looked at the child, her voice faint. "Thank you." The little girl didn't answer, but she didn't run away either. That small moment was the first crack in the wall between them. That evening, as the sun sank low and painted the sky orange, the man sat outside repairing a broken tool. The alien girl sat quietly near the doorway, wrapped in the blanket. She looked out at the fields, the house, the simple life he had built with his daughter. A strange warmth filled her chest, a feeling she hadn't known for years. Safety. She turned her head slightly, watching the daughter chase a chicken across the yard, laughing softly when it escaped her hands. The sound of laughter felt strange to the alien girl, almost painful, because it reminded her of everything she had lost. Yet, at the same time, it pulled her closer to something she thought she would never feel again: belonging. Later, when night came and the stars returned, she whispered to the man, her eyes lowered. "Why did you bring me here? Your people, your daughter, they will never accept me. I am broken." He set down his tools and looked at her, his gaze steady. "You are not broken. You survived, and as long as you are under my roof, no one will harm you." She blinked at him, her heart racing. No one had ever spoken like that for her, not even her own people. She turned her face away quickly, hiding the tears that threatened to fall again. Inside, his daughter watched this quietly. She still felt unsure about the alien girl, but she saw the way her father spoke to her, the way his voice carried no fear, only kindness. Slowly, the child began to believe that maybe this stranger was not here to bring danger. Maybe she was here to stay. That night, as the wind howled outside and the fire crackled in the hearth, the alien girl lay awake, staring at the wooden ceiling. She thought of the hole in the desert, the cold sand around her neck, the voices calling her worthless. And then she thought of the man's arms carrying her, the daughter's quiet gift of bread, the warmth of this small house. For the first time since her punishment, she felt a fragile spark of something she had buried deep long ago. Hope that maybe she could be more than what her people had condemned her to be. Hope that this strange human and his little daughter might see her not as cursed, but as someone who could belong. The days passed quietly at the small farm, and the alien girl slowly grew stronger. Her wounds began to heal, and her body regained some warmth. She still moved carefully, always afraid that she was a burden, but the man and his daughter treated her with a gentleness she had never known. At night, she often sat near the fire, staring into the flames, trying to believe this peace was real. But deep inside, she knew it could not last forever. Her people never allowed the condemned to escape their judgment. One afternoon, while she was helping the little girl their firewood near the barn, she heard voices in the distance. The sound froze her in place. They were not human voices. Her heart began to race, her skin turning cold. She recognized the sharp tones, the cruel rhythm of her clan's hunters. They had discovered she was alive. Her knees felt weak, and for a moment she wanted to run straight into the desert, to draw them away from the farm. But before she could move, the man appeared at the doorway, his eyes narrowing as he too heard the distant shouts. "They've come," she whispered, her voice breaking. "They will not stop until they finish it. I must go. If they find me here, they will kill you too. He shook his head, his jaw set. No, you are not leaving. This is your home now. She tried to protest, her hands trembling. You don't understand. They will burn your fields, destroy your house, maybe even take your daughter. I cannot bring this curse to your family. His eyes hardened, but his voice was steady. A curse is letting them take you again. I will not stand by and watch. She stared at him, unable to understand such stubborn courage. Her people had always treated her as disposable, and yet here was a man willing to defy an entire clan to protect her. Tears filled her eyes, but she pressed her lips together, unable to speak. The daughter clung to his arm, her small voice trembling. Papa, who are they? He bent down, brushing her hair gently. They are people who think kindness is weakness, but we will not let them hurt anyone here. His words calmed her a little, though fear still lingered in her eyes. The alien girl wanted to argue again, but the sound of footsteps and snarling laughter grew closer. The hunters were not hiding their arrival. They wanted to be heard. The man quickly led them inside the barn, hiding them behind stacks of hay. He whispered to the alien girl, "Stay silent. I will speak with them first." Her chest tightened with guilt. She wanted to run into the open, to surrender, to protect the human family who had shown her more love in a few days than her people had in her whole life. But his hand on her shoulder stopped her. His grip was firm, full of determination. "Trust me," he whispered. The barn door closed, and she crouched in the shadows, her heart pounding like a drum. Through the cracks in the wood, she saw shapes moving across the farmyard. Tall figures carrying spears and blades, their eyes glowing faintly under the setting sun. There were 5 of them, strong and cruel, their armor marked with the symbols of her clan. One of them stepped forward, his voice loud and sharp. "Human, we know she is here. The sterile one, the cursed one. Hand her over, or we will tear this place apart." The man stepped outside, his shoulders squared, his face calm, though his heart beat hard. "There is no one here for you," he said. "This is my farm, my land. Leave now." The hunters laughed, their voices filled with mockery. "Do not lie. We can smell her. She has no place among the living, and if you protect her, you share her fate." The man's hand rested near the axe, leaning against the wall, but he did not lift it yet. "If she has no place among the living, why are you so afraid of her survival? Perhaps it is your honor that is cursed, not her life." The words made the hunters pause, their faces darkening. One spat on the ground. "Do not test us, human. You are weak. One strike, and you will fall." Inside the barn, the alien girl bit her lip so hard it bled. Her body shook with fear and guilt. She wanted to scream at him to stop, to let them take her, but her voice would not come. The daughter squeezed her hand in the dark, whispering, "Papa is brave. He will not let them win." The man finally lifted the axe, his eyes cold but steady. "If you want her, you will have to take her from me. But know this, I may fall, but I will not fall easily. And the world will remember that one human stood against your cruelty." The hunters snarled, their weapons rising. For a moment, the air was thick with tension, the smell of blood waiting to spill. The alien girl's heart pounded as if it would break. She thought of running out, throwing herself at their feet to end this before it began. But the daughter's small hand held her still, her tiny voice whispering, "Please don't, stay." The standoff stretched, silent and heavy. Then one of the hunters lowered his blade, sneering. "This is not finished. We will return, and when we do, no axe will save you." With cruel laughter, they turned and left, their footsteps fading into the darkening horizon. The man lowered his axe slowly, his shoulders heavy with exhaustion, but his face remained calm. Inside the barn, the alien girl collapsed to her knees, her tears falling freely. She whispered to herself, Why would he risk so much for me?" When he returned and opened the barn door, she looked at him with trembling eyes. "You should not have done that. They will come again, stronger, angrier. I am not worth your life." He placed a rough hand gently on her shoulder, his eyes soft. "As long as you are here, you are worth everything. My home protects all who live in it." The words sank into her heart like fire, burning away years of shame. She covered her face with her hands, crying not from fear, but from something she had almost forgotten, hope that she mattered. For the first time, she believed she was not alone. And deep inside, she felt that maybe she had finally found a place where she truly belonged. The night was quiet, but the air carried a heavy tension. The alien girl could not sleep. She lay on the straw bed, listening to the sound of the wind outside and the soft breaths of the man's daughter. Every shadow made her flinch. Every creak of the wooden walls made her heart beat faster. She knew the hunters would return. They had not gone far away. They had promised to come back, and promises of her clan were always kept in blood. The man sat by the door with his axe resting against his knee. His face looked calm, but his eyes never closed. He knew, too. The hunters would not accept defeat. They would come in the dark when fear was strongest. He glanced at the girl and gave a small nod, as if to tell her she was safe. But inside, his mind was racing. He had his daughter to protect. He had this broken soul to defend. And he had only his courage and a few tools of a farmer. Hours passed. The moon climbed high, silver light spilling over the farm. Then, from the distance, came the sound of footsteps. Many this time. Not 5, not 6, more. The ground trembled softly, as if the night itself was warning them. The alien girl sat up, her breath sharp. "They are here," she whispered. The man rose to his feet, gripping his axe tighter. He told his daughter to stay hidden, and she obeyed, clutching her doll close with wide, frightened eyes. The hunters appeared at the edge of the field, their armor shining faintly under the moon. They spread out like shadows, circling the small house. Their leader stepped forward, his voice loud and cruel. "Human, this is your last chance. Give her to us, or you and your child will join her in the dirt." The man's voice was calm, but his words were like iron. "She stays here. If you want her, you'll have to fight me for her." Laughter rose from the group, sharp and mocking. They expected him to break. They expected him to kneel. But he did not move. The alien girl's heart twisted. She wanted to scream at him to stop, to let her go, to save his daughter from this danger. But her voice caught in her throat. The first hunter lunged forward, swinging a curved blade. The man dodged, his axe flashing as it struck the hunter's arm. The alien cried out as the hunter stumbled back, snarling in pain. The others rushed forward, and the night exploded into chaos. The man fought with the strength of desperation. He swung the axe with both hands, striking wood and steel with every blow. He moved with the memory of battles long past, though he had been only a farmer for years. Each strike was for his daughter. Each strike was for the girl they had tried to bury. His breath came heavy, his body aching, but he did not stop. The alien girl could not stay hidden any longer. She grabbed a wooden pole from the barn and struck one of the hunters who tried to sneak behind the man. Her arms shook, her body weak, but the blow surprised him enough to slow him down. Another came at her, and she stumbled back, fear rising. But the man's axe split the ground between them, forcing the hunter away. "Stay behind me," he shouted, his voice rough. The daughter, small and trembling, found courage too. She threw stones from the shadows, hitting helmets and arms. It was not much, but it distracted the hunters, giving her father small chances to strike. Her face was pale with fear, but she did not run. The hunters were skilled, stronger and faster than humans, but they had not expected such resistance. Each time they advanced, the man forced them back with fury. His arms bled, his chest burned, but he stood tall. The alien girl watched him, her chest tight with something stronger than fear. She had never seen anyone fight for her. Her own people had abandoned her, but this human, this widowed father, risked everything. The leader roared in anger and charged, his spear aiming straight for the man's chest. The alien girl screamed, moving without thinking. She pushed the man aside, the spear grazing her shoulder instead. Pain shot through her body, but she stayed standing. The man's axe came down hard, striking the leader's weapon and breaking it in two. The hunter fell back, stunned. His pride wounded more than his body. Silence fell for a moment. The hunters looked at their leader, then at the human who stood unbroken, his axe dripping with sweat and dust. The alien girl clutched her bleeding shoulder, her body trembling but her eyes burning with defiance. Even the child stood behind her father, holding another stone in her tiny hand. The leader's face twisted with rage, but he saw the truth. They could kill the human, perhaps, but not without loss. And not without shame. To be resisted so fiercely by one man, one child, and one outcast, it was already a wound to their pride. With a hiss, he spat on the ground. "This is not over. You cannot protect her forever." He turned, and the others followed, melting into the darkness as quickly as they had come. The man lowered his axe slowly, his chest heaving with exhaustion. The alien girl sank to her knees, clutching her wound, her breath ragged. The daughter ran to her father, hugging his leg tightly, her small body shaking. He dropped his axe and knelt, pulling her into his arms. The alien girl looked at them, her eyes full of tears. She whispered, "I should have left. I should not have brought this to you." The man met her gaze, his voice steady despite his tiredness. "You are not a curse. You are family now, and no one takes family from me." Her lips trembled, her chest heavy with emotions she could not name. She had been called worthless, cursed, sterile, but tonight she had seen something else. A man who risked his life for her, a child who threw stones to protect her, a family that claimed her as their own. For the first time in her life, she believed she was not alone. And though the hunters would return, though danger would come again, she knew something stronger had been born in her heart. Hope. A fragile hope, but one that made her whisper through her tears, "Humans are stronger than I ever knew." The morning after the attack was quiet, but the silence carried a different weight. The farm smelled of smoke and dust, the broken ground showing where the hunters had stood. The man was tired, his arms sore from swinging the axe all night, yet his eyes stayed sharp. He kept checking the horizon, ready for their return. The alien girl sat near the fire with his daughter, her wounded shoulder bandaged with cloth torn from his own shirt. The little girl leaned close to her, offering a piece of bread, smiling shyly. For the first time, the alien girl accepted it without hesitation, her lips trembling as she whispered, "Thank you." She felt strange inside. Her people had cast her out, called her cursed, left her buried in the dirt to die. Yet here, in the small wooden house with its broken fences and warm fire, she had found something they had never given her: care, protection, belonging. The memory of the man standing against her hunters filled her heart. She had never seen such strength, not from swords or claws, but from love. He had defended her as if she were his own blood. Later, as the sun rose higher, she walked slowly into the yard, her bare feet brushing against the cool grass. She stared at the fields, the trees, and the simple farmhouse, all glowing golden in the light. She touched the rough wooden wall with her hand, as if to test if it was real. She whispered to herself, "This is my home now." The man came out behind her, carrying a basket of tools. He saw her standing there, lost in thought, and asked, "Are you strong enough to walk around?" She nodded, though her voice was soft. Stronger than before. Not strong enough to thank you properly. He set the tools down and looked at her with calm eyes. "You don't need to thank me. You just need to live. That's all the thanks I want." Her throat tightened. No one had ever spoken like that to her. She turned away quickly, hiding the tears that filled her eyes. She had cried more in these few days than in all her life, but these tears felt different. They were not from pain or fear, but from something she had thought she would never feel again: hope. The daughter joined them soon, holding a flower she had picked from the field. She handed it to the alien girl with a shy grin. "Here, for you." The alien girl took it gently, staring at the small blossom in her hand. It was simple, fragile, yet beautiful, just like the life she was beginning to see for herself. She bent down and hugged the child, her arms trembling as she whispered, "I will protect you, little one, as if you were my own." The child giggled and held on tight. The man watched silently, his lips curving into a small smile. He had carried her home, fought for her life, but now he saw something even greater. She was no longer only someone to protect. She was becoming part of their family. The day passed in peace. They repaired the fences together, ate a meal of bread and stew, and sat by the fire as the evening came. The alien girl's laughter, soft and hesitant, echoed inside the small house. It was the first time she had laughed in years. The daughter laughed with her, and the man listened quietly, his heart lighter than it had been since his wife's passing. That night, when the stars filled the sky, the alien girl stepped outside. She looked up, her eyes shining in the starlight. She thought of the hole in the desert, the sand pressing against her neck, the voices of her people calling her cursed. She remembered how close she had been to death. And now, standing here, she felt alive in a way she had never known. The man came to stand beside her, silent at first. Then he said, "They may come back. They may try again, but no matter what, you are not alone anymore. Do you understand?" She turned to him, her voice breaking with emotion. I was nothing to them, less than nothing. Yet you gave me life when they gave me death. I cannot understand why. He looked at her, his eyes steady and gentle. Because no one is nothing, not while someone is willing to stand for them. Her chest tightened as if those words had cut away all the chains her people had placed on her. She lowered her head, tears sliding down her cheeks. Then I will stand too, for you, for her, for this home. The promise was simple, but it carried the weight of her entire soul. In the small farmhouse, the daughter called from inside, her voice sleepy. Papa, come, and bring her too. The alien girl wiped her tears quickly, smiling faintly. She followed the man inside, and together they sat at the table with the child. They shared a simple meal, the fire crackling in the hearth, the warmth wrapping around them like an invisible shield. For the first time, the alien girl felt something she thought she would never have: a family. As the night grew deeper, she lay on the straw bed, staring at the ceiling. The man's words echoed in her mind. His kindness had dug her out of the earth, but his love and his daughter's innocence had dug her out of despair. She whispered into the dark, her voice soft but certain. Humans are strange and stronger than anyone believes. And maybe they are what I needed most. With that thought, she closed her eyes, not in fear of death, but in the comfort of belonging. And in that small house, a widowed father, his daughter, and a girl once condemned as worthless began a new chapter together. A chapter where hope, love, and courage would always burn brighter than cruelty and shame.